Alright, Chapter 3, Big Pharma. I was never a fan of school. After 4th grade, the odds of getting me to complete an assignment were slim. When handed an assignment, do you hear that? After 4th grade, no joke. The odds of getting me to complete an assignment were extremely slim. When handed an assignment, I would simply write the words, "No," in big bold letters. When pressed further by teachers and other authority figures, I would say something along the lines of, "Nah, you got me fucked up, I'm not doing that shit." My lack of enthusiasm for schoolwork, and that was to the ones that I didn't have respect for. The really cool ones who gained my respect, I'd be like, "Man, you know what I'm saying? Man, I got love for you, dog, but I ain't really with it like that," you know what I'm saying? That was exactly how I would talk. My lack of enthusiasm for schoolwork wasn't due to a lack of motivation or passion. I had many fascinations like martial arts, hip-hop, dance, and art. In earlier years of my schooling, instead of doing my work, I would draw in class. I got very good at it. Later on, I would skip school altogether. This gave me time to pursue the things that I was actually passionate about, like going to Rastas. Rasta Gary Taylor was a pivotal person for me to meet. He owned a little store called 101 Customs where I regularly went inside instead of school. He taught me about Bob Marley and the Rasta way of peace and unity. I felt connected to him because he also believed that the systems we exist in, like our education systems, are not functional and don't operate in our collective best interest. Most of all, Rasta and I connected through our love of art. From ages 7 to 13, he always let me come in and paint with him. Occasionally, my mother would find me there and tell Rasta that he couldn't let me skip school and hang out at his shop, but I would always find my way back. I'll show you guys a picture of me and him together when I was a kid. Look at that, dude. Look how fat I was. This atypical and sometimes defiant behavior concerned my mother. Being a good mother, she decided that my range of self-expression required the use of pharmaceutical drugs, like many other mothers do. I feel no anger toward her for making that decision. She was literally just doing what she thought was best. She herself had struggled with her mental health, trying every means she could find to manage it. She had been seeing various psychiatrists, and since she was 18, she had been prescribed a variety of drugs. Since this route was familiar to my mom, she decided to take me to see a psychiatrist named Dr. Tamarkin. Dr. Tamarkin worked at the Costello Center where my mom took me in when I was 8. It took me in when I was 8 to get a proper diagnosis and medicine. We went together and waited in the lobby until Dr. Tamarkin invited us into her office. She was a 40-year-old woman with silky, dirty blonde hair wearing a gray 3-piece pantsuit. Her office was dull, cold, and clinical. She sat my mother and me down on her black leather blank couch. "Tell me why you're here, Connor," she said in a monotone voice. Her eyes seemed hollow, for real. It was quite obvious that she too was hooked up on her own unique cocktail of pharmaceutical drugs. I looked at her in disbelief, not buying any of this bullshit around me. I said nothing, so my mom spoke for me. "Connor has a hard time focusing on his schoolwork." Dr. Tamarkin pursed her lips and gave me a professionally kind look. "I'm sorry to hear that, Connor," she said. "That's perfectly normal for boys your age." She took out a small packet that I recognized immediately. The questionnaire I had filled out prior to coming, which she asked generic questions like, "I have a hard time completing assignments." Oh, but yeah, the packet asked generic questions like, "I have a hard time completing assignments," and provided a spectrum of possible responses from strongly agree to strongly disagree. She flipped through the pages quickly and then looked up at me. "Connor, based on what your mother has told me and your responses in this packet, I believe you have ADHD." "What is that?" I asked, with a tinge of offense in my voice. I felt like I was being accused of something I didn't do. "ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactive Disorder," Dr. Tamarkin said. "It's a disorder that affects your ability to focus and make decisions to succeed." "Look, lady," I said, "I hate school, but I don't have a disease." "Not a disease, Connor. It's a mental disorder." "I am not retarded," I yelled, flailing my arms in protest. "Connor!" my mom started. "Nobody is saying you were retarded, honey." "Yes, in fact, we don't really use that word anymore," Dr. Tamarkin said. I settled back down and relaxed my shoulders, submitting to the ceaseless will of the adults in the room. Part of me began to believe what they were saying. Maybe I did have a disorder. And even if I didn't, what could I do? Tell them they were wrong? I wasn't going to change my behavior. School seemed like such a waste of time. If they had to fabricate some disorder to name that, then so be it. "So, Rhonda, here's what we're going to do now for Connor." Dr. Tamarkin smiled at my mom. "To write him a prescription for Adderall, which he'll take 5 milligrams of twice a day." I'm fucking 8 years old here. Bless her soul. It's like, can't even blame the doctor. Can't even blame the schools. You gotta blame the fucking pharmaceutical companies who cook the books. After finishing up with Dr. Tamarkin, we paid and left. Within a day or two, my prescription was ready. And just like that, at only 8 years old, I began taking one of the most strongest drugs in the methyl group. One little methyl away from methamphetamine. How did I, so many other children in the early 2000s, get prescribed kitty meth? It was the result of a simple trick called the false dilemma fallacy. Instead of investigating the root issues behind behaviors that manifest in children who display the symptoms of ADHD, the healthcare industry treats the symptoms as manifestations of the material brain alone. Amphetamines are prescribed because the behaviors associated with ADHD are viewed as the result of a chemical imbalance in the brain, completely ignoring that the neurochemistry has a relationship to our experience, patterns of thought, our emotions, not a casual one. This then creates the false appearance of a dilemma in which there are two choices: take drugs to alter the chemistry, the behavior, or remain the same. Instead of processing potential traumatic experiences that may make it difficult for a child to focus, socialize, and make decisions, they are given pharmaceuticals. Instead of teaching children how to concentrate through meditative exercises, which can increase their capacity to stay on task and be mindful of distractions, they are fed poison. Instead of acknowledging that the food supply over the last 70 years has shifted so drastically, it's honestly incomprehensible, so much so, actually, that there is now introduced thousands of new chemicals into our food and water that many are known carcinogens, not only carcinogens, but also other chemicals and substances referred to as food that are known to give you dementia. For example, fluoride, seed oils, processed sugar, high fructose corn syrup, various food coloring, and such. All of the different, look up the tap water database, EWG tap water database, the polyphenols, the fucking, the halaxylocilins, I don't know how to say the weird long names. We shouldn't even know how to say them because they shouldn't be in our water, but they are, and they give you dementia. Funny enough, I was eating all of those really sweet, fruity, highly sugared and dyed cereals. Even to this day, 15 years later or whatever, it's very clear that the ingredients in these foods are extremely detrimental to not only children's brains, but all human brains. I would never in a million years eat any crap like that ever again because I choose to eat food. That's why I became so mentally stable, successful, and able to thrive in all areas of life. But still, let's address the problem a little bit more. Why was the false dilemma fallacy used? It's simple: profit. According to Statista, from 1960 to 1922, prescription drug expenditure grew from $2.7 billion to $405.9 billion. While the population has grown significantly since 1960, drug sales could not have increased that much by natural population growth alone. Instead, they grew due to pharmaceutical companies incentivizing drug sales. A great example of pharmaceutical industry relentless dedication to profit exposed in Simon Neville's article, GlaxoSmithKline fined $3 billion after bribing doctors to increase drug sales. The article outlines a horrible scandal in which the massive pharmaceutical corporation GSK bribed doctors to prescribe children the antidepressants Paxil and Wellbutrin, which were unsuitable for them due to the increased risk of suicide. Yeah, take this for depression, except it's gonna make you want to commit suicide. In this scandal, psychiatrists were flown out in luxury hotels and treated to an array of excursions during an all-inclusive trips, during which presentations were made on the drugs. The company also incentivized psychiatrists to write extra prescriptions by giving them trips to resorts in Bermuda, Jamaica, California. Pretty fucked up, right? Another sad truth about this whole ordeal is that one prescription often implies another. I later went back to Dr. Tamarkin and got diagnosed with depression because of the come-down symptoms of the amphetamines I was taking. Isn't that ironic? The way our society represses the genuine expressions and interest of its young, sells them amphetamines to correct their inappropriate behavior, and then, when their minds are burnt out, concludes that it must be depression due to a chemical imbalance in their brain, all to sell them more fucking drugs. To give you an idea of how fucked up these prescription amphetamines are, I'll tell you the story of my first time taking them. I woke up that day, eager for once to go to school. I was excited to play an Egyptian mystery hunt game on the computers in Mr. Sikalos' class. Mr. Sikalos was my 4th grade teacher, was the only school teacher to ever keep me engaged, ever. In my zeal to get to school, I completely ignored the odd chemical taste in the berry smoothie my mom had made me that morning. When I quickly gulped down before getting into Wendell's car on the way to school, while Wendell was delivering one of his iconic morning talks about Jesus, I began feeling jittery. As we pulled off into the drop-off line, my heart began beating really fast and I felt nauseous. When Wendell stopped in front of the entrance, I threw my backpack over my shoulder, opened the door, and hopped out of the car. "Have a blessed day, Connor," he said. I felt pissed off for no reason, so I slammed the door behind me and avoided responding. As I reached for the school door, a wave of nausea rushed through my body. My vision buzzed. The sounds of my peers chatting around the schoolyard sounded like 1,000 miles away. I lost my balance. I fell fell to my knees gagged, and then abnormal muscle contractions forcing up a pool of purple sludge from my face. Ew! I heard a girl squeal to my left. Connor is leaking! The air filled with laughter, remarks of disgust, and the questions of concerned school staff. I was promptly helped to my feet, hydrated, and sent to class, still buzzing from the high of the amphetamines. Chapter 4. Hell of a Habit.